Today in the Decade Arcade, we are going to be taking a look at Dragon's Crown. Is this game still worth your time and money in the current day and age, or is it just a gem lost to the progression of time? Dive in with me as we go through the personality, the culture, and gameplay that make up Dragon's Crown. Dragon's Crown is an RPG beat-em-up with 6 playable classes developed by Vanillaware, published by Atlas, and released in August of 2013. The game was re-released in 2018 as Dragon's Crown Pro. That's the version I played on because, like most remasters, they got rid of the original. It is not improved much from the original game. It's pretty much just touched up art and some touched up soundtrack and everything, so it's almost a one-for-one to what it was back in 2013. And as a result of it not being touched up very much, it still qualifies for the Decade Arcade sort of retrospective. Games like Final Fantasy VII Remake and Resident Evil Remake would not be applicable if those games were within the Decade Arcade time limit, because they might as well be whole new games themselves. As of right now, Dragon's Crown goes for about $20 on PSN. It's only for Sony consoles. First, let's take a look at the culture and personality. I mean, the artwork. Yes, the artwork that makes Dragon's Crown so unique. All jokes aside, this game oozes a flavor that is all its own. It is a really great, like, hand-drawn storybook type of vibe. The scenery is really something great to look at. They are really good backdrops. The dungeons themselves have designs that are really cool, from riding magic carpets, riding on a boat, and it all looks like it's just a moving storybook. And the monsters and the humans and classes in the game have very exaggerated looks, like a mermaid whose tail doesn't start until after her butt, and a harpy who's pretty much a full bird body, and then she has like her head and then her chest, and then there's all the males who have muscles on their muscles. It's a very exaggerated style of game. Let's just take a moment to kind of go over the base storyline. No spoilers, however, I do find that the story is not nearly enough to really care about spoilers. The story is kind of just your baseline. We are at war, and we need mysterious item to win the war. So you go out to try and find mysterious item, and in the process of trying to find the mysterious item, you then need other mysterious items to get to the mysterious item. And that's about the gist of the game, and then suddenly there's a big bad and stuff. It's just your standard RPG fantasy affair. The game's storyline is narrated from one voice, which at first it's like, oh, it's like you're telling a story. This makes sense. But it draws a little thin after a while. I started to feel a little just disconnected from the story. Thankfully, there is an option to change your narrator to be any of the 6 classes. You could even change it to Japanese voices if you were so inclined. And this, I felt like, helped the game because I just switch it to the class I'm playing as, and then it feels a little more connected to who you're playing and how you're playing, because it just feels like inner thought monologue rather than just random narrator narrating over it. Like, there are games out there where there's a narrator and all the characters talk. That just feels a step above just a narrator. I don't know, the delivery wasn't the greatest for me, but it's still serviceable, it's fine. My biggest gripe with the story, besides the stuff I just kind of went over that was more so serviceable, and this kind of gets into gameplay a little bit too, is there is a point in the story where you break the portal, and the portal's only going to send you to random places from now on. And in order to circumvent being sent to random dungeons, which to get certain things to complete the story, you need to go to specific dungeons, you have to go to the stable in order to pay money to click a specific dungeon you want to go to. It feels like an unnecessary thing to add, an unnecessary money sink that's just kind of thrown in there, and I didn't care for it. Now, as for the more actual gameplay, Dragon's Crown is a 2.5D side-scrolling beat-em-up. Think like Double Dragon and the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles games and stuff along those lines. We've all probably seen and played a beat-em-up in our life. It features 6 playable classes. The 6 playable classes are the Amazon, an aerial and parry-based melee fighter, the Fighter, who is more of like the tank of the group, but still does solid enough damage, the Elf, who is kind of just the nimble, ranged and melee-based type of fighter, the Dwarf, who is more of the brawler type, and then the Wizard, who is more of like your nuking type of mage, and the Sorceress, who is more support oriented. My main playthrough was on the Sorceress, who gets a series of supportive skills that can like replenish your party's item usage and do other various little supportive things around the map, summon skeletons and stuff with abilities you get later on. And she does solid damage, but she's not really combo oriented from what I gathered on the playthrough at least. She has like elemental magic depending on what staff is equipped. It felt good. The gameplay feels really tight and fluid. It feels very fun to play. However, something always felt a little missing. And then I went and I loaded up a Valkyrie and I played a few dungeons as the Valkyrie. And then I was like, yeah, this is a beat 'em up. And yeah, the Valkyrie feels a lot cooler than the Sorceress, I would say. Just because in a beat 'em up, I really like to just get in there and combo and go crazy. Just look at this insane Valkyrie aerial nonsense. It's just a little bit more up the beat 'em up playstyle that I am looking for from these types of games. While you're exploring, there are various little bone piles in the dungeons that you can revive into the various classes. They're assist characters for if you're playing solo, and they cost gold at the church to revive. You can also opt to bury them to take some of their items. The system as a whole is interesting and fun, but the fact that it costs gold and party members that cannot update themselves, they cannot level, items cannot be changed from what I can see anyway. They just kind of sit there, and then it means that you have to revive new party members to get stronger members. And then also every time you complete a dungeon, you have to reset the party members. It takes them all out of your party and then you have to reset them. It's just not the most intuitive system, and it kind of sucked in the long run. You can also just leave your party member slots empty, go into the dungeon, and then as you're progressing through the dungeon, almost always one party member will jump in, one of your random party members. Usually it's 2, and then sometimes a 3rd will jump in during like the boss fight or something along those lines. After a while, I did just focus on letting AI party members kind of jump in whenever, because I got kind of tired of after every single dungeon having to go back into the tavern just to reset the party. The RPG systems in the game are basically just stats and loadouts, which on surface level can sound like it would be on the deep side, but it felt kind of surface level. There are multiple loadouts to select from. However, it doesn't feel like there's a lot of build diversity. I was just kind of focusing on big number, most stats to get through the base playthrough. That's about all you need. You don't really need to focus on anything else. You can equip a weapon along with various sub-equipment, which is like necklaces, shields, bracelets, and the eye stuff like that. All of the items are graded from A to S rank, and you get the item in the dungeon and it does not have anything revealed. You have to pay gold to see what it does. So you have to appraise the item. So like as you can see here, I have a lot of unappraised items. So you just click it, you click to appraise it, and then there's what it does. And just as a whole, it doesn't lend itself to this sorceress is going to be different from somebody else's sorceress. They're going to all kind of feel like they play the same. And then you also have to repair items, but that's nothing all that different or strange from other RPGs. Off of the base playthrough, I kind of only needed to just focus on the bigger number. There is a chance that in higher difficulties, maybe you want to focus more on making your kit cohesive, so making sure everything deals with fire damage or making sure you take fire resistance into fire dungeons, etc. So the loadout matters a little bit more, but on the base playthrough, didn't really matter. And even when it does start to matter, it's still not going to matter for the sake of build diversity. There is skills which you acquire at the guild. They require skill points to acquire, and they feel a little bit better than the item system, but they are still just kind of generic, and they don't really feel like they're adding play styles. They're just adding little bits of more stuff to your character's kit. Like the witch eventually gets the ability to fly through the sky, summon skeletons. They're fun. You get skill points through just leveling up and then also doing the side quests. Side quests are pretty, they can be important. They give you gold along with other various artwork and the skill points. And they also give experience, which gives you levels, which gives you more skill points. So if you really want to invest in the skills, probably do the quests. Speaking of quests, the quest system is just, it is what it is. There's not really story to the quests. They feel fine. They're just fetch, go do this for me, go do that for me. Kind of needed, but kind of not needed. If you really like the artwork, you want to chase down the artwork, but at the end of the day, it's artwork with some lore attached to it, so it wasn't like the greatest thing ever as far as rewards, but it's serviceable as far as more stuff to do in this game if you're really, really, really liking it. The game has 9 explorable dungeons, and each dungeon you'll have to clear an extra time afterwards, which each dungeon has an A path and a B path. You'll clear A path, then halfway through the game, they're like, hey, go clear B path, which is stronger, different enemies, different boss, everything. The dungeons do look very nice, and there's like various little glints in the background that you scroll your little hand over to reveal. And then you also, while scrolling this little hand, click on treasure chest and doors to have a thief that accompanies you unlock them. It feels a little tedious and unneeded. Besides the fact that the game was on the Vita, I don't really see why that's on there. There's also like little runes in the background that you can click on and combine them with your runes to make special effects. But again, you have to get your mouse to click on it. And it feels weird to try and do that. And like most of the rune effects that you would want to do help you in combat. So you're trying to combat people while scrolling your mouse to click the rune. And then you have to click more runes. It just feels cumbersome, and I didn't partake in it too much besides the few little story time. There's some story stuff that you have to do dealing with the runes, but besides that, not too much else to the dungeon exploration. There is like an interesting dungeon chaining mechanic that you can do where you beat a dungeon and then you can elect to continue. And electing to continue costs, it will make the rewards increase, the gold experience, the items you get, everything increases, and you can keep that going as long as you have the items to keep healing as you're going. And there's like a cute little cooking mini game in between the dungeons that like gives you stats and stuff for your next run, and the next run will be a little bit harder to do. And overall, it's a pretty cool system, but the RPG elements and the build variety doesn't feel like it supports that, like, I need to keep chaining and I need to keep grinding to get the best things possible. I did it a little bit because I was a little under-leveled and under-equipped at one point. But at the end of the day, the game still just felt like I just need whatever's better stats. And I didn't really worry about it too much and could complete the base playthrough. The base playthrough took me about 20 hours to beat, and there are 2 more difficulties after that point that are, of course, just increased difficulties. I didn't touch them too much. I just was kind of over the game by the time I got there. So take it for what you will. But if you really like beat 'em ups, it's going to be your jam to just get through those harder difficulties as well. This last little section, pure speculation. Do not quote it as fact, but it's kind of just me speculating, is the game worthwhile to invest in right now? As a whole, I would say it is worthwhile to invest in. The game is solid. It's definitely above average. It's carried a fair bit by its artwork for me, but the beat 'em up gameplay is fun and definitely worth playing through. RPG side being the lighter side. Now, that puts it at, it's probably worthwhile. What puts it at, like, it's pretty much full-blown worthwhile investing in is the fact that we're probably not going to get a successor anytime soon, or even a true remaster. Like, we just have the pro version, because the pro version came out 2018. We have 2019, 13 Sentinels came out. The director has said that their next game is tied to 13 Sentinels, and that should be coming out here shortly. And then they can dedicate their team's resources to their next game after that game comes out, which, if that game's probably not even nowhere near even started, really. So if that next game were to be related to Dragon's Crown, spiritual successor, sequel, whatever, it would mean that we are several years, like years, from another game. In conclusion, Dragon's Crown isn't a solid above average game, I would say. If you really like the artwork or really like beat 'em ups, give this game a shot. If you are looking for an RPG with deep build mechanics and like that sort of thing, like various, like the stats really matter and everything, I would honestly argue to look elsewhere. If you just want to beat 'em up with some of that on the side, or if you like the lighter RPG side of things, again, this is very serviceable and all of that. So the game as a whole is just like above average to average. So you average out those averages and you get above average. And that wraps up the review for Dragon's Crown. Let me know in the comments down below if you have any objections, any suggestions. If you want to specify anything that I talked about here, please let me know. Be sure to leave a like on the video if you liked the video, and subscribe for more dives into the past, along with other video gaming topic news. And I will catch you guys in the next one. Peace out and game on.